Do a mic check. So there's a few of you here I see. Good morning. Hope everyone is doing okay. Trying to get my spirits up for whatever reason. I'm just not feeling super excited about things right now, but usually for me, sitting down and just sort of seeing what Linux will let me do is a way to lift my spirits a little bit. It's fun to mess around in a computer like this with sort of low stakes, you know. Okay, we are in week 7, and that's important for you guys because week 9 is the midterm week. So just to remind you, this week, week 7, and next week, week 8, are like normal. There's a discussion prompt, there's a lab assignment, but week 9 is a little different. So I'll go click on it just to show you. But when week 9 comes, there is no discussion prompt that week, and there's no lab assignment. The whole week, week 9 is the midterm. So it's kind of in here on this schedule twice, just because I want you to be aware of the due date. So you will have access to the midterm exam. Well, let's go look. Good morning, Justin. Thank you for greeting. Sorry, I should have been saying good morning to everybody. Good morning to those of you here. Thank you. Good morning, Justin. Anyway, I'm going to click on the week 9. That's 2 weeks away, but just so you know. So notice in week 9, it's only the midterm. Only the midterm exam. It will open up on Monday the 19th. You should be able to see that, I think, if you go look. Yep, so available on right at as soon as midnight turns over on October 19th, and it is due on Sunday night, right before midnight. So it's the same due date, but it's the only activity for the week of week 9. It's got 50 questions on it. It's open book. So the point mostly is for us to figure out what it is that we might want to spend more time talking about, to do some gap filling if we need to, and also just to give you a chance and stop and review what we've done up to that point. So 50 questions, they're 5 points apiece for a total of 250 points, so keep that in mind as well. It's more than the normal points. You only have one attempt, so once you have clicked submit, that's it. But there's no timer. So you can start the exam and then come back to it later. You just need to make sure that you've clicked submit before Sunday night, October 25th. So please make room in your schedules for that. It's more work than the normal lab. I'll still do a Twitch broadcast on that Monday night, and I'll do a little bit of reviewing just to remind ourselves what it is that we should expect to encounter. The midterm questions are all drawn from the prior 8 weeks. So the way I built the midterm in Canvas is I told it pull questions from the first 8 weeks and stir them in. So you're going to see the same questions, some selection of the same questions pulled from the first 8 weeks of class, or kind of reviewing what you've learned up to that point. So the main thing is just please make time in your schedules to handle that. Now the other thing that I'll remind you about, even though it seems way far away right now, but it's getting less far away, is the team project that's due on November 8th. You all have teams. In Canvas they call them groups. But anyway, if you go to the gray bar on the left, you will find a groups link. And if you click on the groups link, you will find that you are attached to actually 2 different groups for this class, but one of them is your Team Project 1 group. And I don't think anyone in this class has done it yet, but if you haven't, please consider being that person in your group who makes first contact with everybody. I'm going to send an announcement or probably a Canvas inbox message to everybody this afternoon, encouraging you to get in touch with everybody. But the sooner you do that, the sooner you can start lining up what it is each of you needs to do for your part of the team project task. It's not a giant project, but it's also it will take some time. So you want to get in touch with your group and start planning out how you're going to attack that project. And if you haven't done so, please go read it. Okay, so we are in week 7. We're going to do one thing that's a little bit different today. So I'll try to go slow as we go through it on the video, but we are going to do one task that's different today. And if you know your way around Linux, just a heads up, I'm going to do it this sort of the least convenient way possible because I don't want people to get confused about which login they're using. So what you're going to see me do here in a few minutes is I'm going to log in as root onto my Linux system, my CentOS system. I'm going to update the software in it. I'm going to install a new piece of software, and then I'm going to exit and re-log in as my normal user account. So that's coming up here in a few minutes, but if you know that there's sort of a fast way to do that, there is, and I'm purposely not doing it that way, just to not. Plus, it's kind of fun to be root for a few moments and feel that sense of power in a system. Okay, so what we have going on this week, I should have highlighted grep. Let me go bold that. It just bothers me that it's not bolded. Okay, so 3 new commands. The date and cal commands are pretty trivial. Oh, nice. Okay, so Justin's group already has, it appears, a discussion group going on in Canvas. So if you're in Justin's group, please check into Canvas and look in your group, and you'll see that you have a little area that you own. So that's outstanding. I actually am not aware of how much Canvas is going to tell me about your activities, but I didn't know that. So I guess Canvas doesn't necessarily notify me of such things. So outstanding. That's great. Hopefully other groups are doing the same thing and getting yourselves started on a little bit of meeting each other and discussing how you might attack the team project. Okay, so the date command and the cal command are super simple commands. They do have options like other commands do. Dates options are a little bit more elaborate in some ways than cal. So we'll play around with those a little bit, but those are just, they're useful if you're a system administrator because you can put timestamps on things with the date command, and that's very useful for sort of scripting from an administrator perspective. The grep command I use a lot. It's a text searching command, so we're going to play around with grep a little while after we get a new piece of software installed. If you are aware of what a regular expression is, we're going to have our first taste of regular expressions, but I'm not going to use that term. We'll cross that bridge when we have to, but we can just sort of think about grep right now as searching for specific text inside of files. Where we're going to actually start is we're going to install improved VI editor onto our CentOS systems, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you can customize your editing environment with a special file. So that's where we're going to start actually, is with this Vim stuff. Then we'll probably touch on date and time a little bit. And then we'll spend the last section of our time using grep. All right, so that's the plan for attack. Let's see what else we got going on in here. So this touches on 3 readings. And again, I'm still doing these mirror links because if the main site that hosts our textbook goes down, I don't want you to be lost without the materials. So I've put copies of all that material on my personal website, so that's what these mirror links are for. If you find a broken link, try the mirror. The lab as usual, 20 questions as usual, so nothing exciting there. Oh yeah? Actually, that's interesting. So Crotan points out that the weeks are starting to probably. I would say this: the weeks are starting to. Oh, that means you're ahead. If you've already done week 7, then you're ahead of the game. The whole semester, by the way, is up. I may not have told you guys that. Your whole semester's material is now available. So if you feel like you want to have a super productive week at some point, the entire semester is available. There's a couple of Piazza discussions that are voting or poll type discussions, and sometimes I don't publish those until that week because I want to make sure everyone is sort of working from the same amount of experience through the semester up to that point. But for the most part, if you want to go banging out lab assignments, they're all there now. But the point is, it's true, I'm having to sort of stop and think about what week we're in anymore because we're almost halfway there. I do want to go back, actually, since we're talking about the lab. One thing that I started to do with the labs is sometimes I just put commands that don't do anything as wrong answers. But sometimes the wrong answers are commands that do something that's not what the question wants you to do, but will still do something. So I hope that you're taking advantage of, like, when you see the possible answers for a question, it says, what command does this thing? You might just try them all. It doesn't take very long, and you might sort of see, oh, here's a different thing that this command does. Even though it's not the answer to this question, it's still interesting to know it does that. So anyway, a lot of the lab assignment wrong answers are actually there to give you an excuse to try something different out, even though they aren't necessarily the correct answer for that question. Talked about Piazza, so this one is encouraging you to go try out some Vim customizations. And then reminders, so again, the midterm is week 9, that's only 2 weeks away now, so please try to plan accordingly. And it's 50 questions and you've only got one shot at it as opposed to your weekly labs that you always get a second try if you want. And then the team projects. We're a month out, but that month is going to pass quickly, so keep that in mind. Okay, anyway, that's all the walkthrough of the content. So let me switch the view up and we'll go into CentOS. I've already, by the way, put, hopefully you can read it. I can zoom this in a little bit. So this is everything that I'm about to do. I've put in this file over here on the screen. So we're going to install Vim, and here's the steps that I'm going to do to install it. Then we're going to log back in with our normal user account and try out some simple Vim customizations, talk about the configuration file, and then we'll try out grep and then date and then cal. So I've already kind of lined up here in this screen to the right all the stuff that you're going to see me do here in class today. All right, switching the view. Okay, so I'm about to log in as root. You should, this is my opinion, you'll find people who disagree with me, but I think you should never log in as root with the intention of sitting there and working for hours and hours and hours unless you've got some system problem to solve. If you need to install a piece of software, what I recommend is that you log in as root if you have to, install the software, and then log out as root. It's, in my opinion, always better to be working in your system at the lowest possible privileges level that you can, so that you're less likely to destroy your system. On a Linux system, when you're logged in as root, you can ruin it, and it will not stop you. You can totally ruin your installation. So be careful when you're logged in as root. So here I go, I'm going to log in as root. I used a simple password just so I'd remember, but I rarely do this. So I can see by my prompt here that I'm logged in as root. You can also say, who am I? And remind yourself that you're root. So this is a time to be very careful. particularly with things like the remove command. Be very, very careful about removing stuff because you can wreak havoc on a system with a sloppy remove command as root. I'm not going to do any removes here. But what I am going to do is I'm about to update the software. So in a CentOS system, the package manager, the program that we use, there's another one now, but the program that we will use to maintain the software on the system is called Yum. Probably it stands for like yet another manager or something like that. It's called Yum, and you can look at the man page for it if you want. But typically, if you're going to install software, what a lot of people will do in Linux is they'll update their software first. So I'm going to do a Yum update. What that's going to do is it's going to inspect my system, my local system, and then it's going to compare the state of my local system with a remote software repository, and anywhere where it finds new software, it's going to grab that software and install it. So this could take a little bit of time. If it does, then I'll talk about something else for a second, but we'll see. Okay, so it's not going to be too bad because it's only 85 megs. So what it's done here is it has fetched a list of all the things that can be updated on my system right now. Some things are going to get installed new, some things are going to get upgraded. It shows you the versions, it shows you how big they are. Most of them are pretty small, so should be trivial. So it's going to install 3 new packages and upgrade 21 packages. If you're a system administrator, by the way, you should not do this when you have, you shouldn't just update software at random if you have users working on your system. Usually you should make sure that the upgrades don't break things that your users need, or don't install a version of software that your users have incompatibilities of some sort with. So anyway, for administrator types, be careful about even updating the software, because you never know if you're going to cause an incompatibility for one of your users, of course. It's just me on this system, so I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to grab my 85 megabytes of software upgrades. And I don't think it'll take very long, so we'll just wait it out. So anyway, I just ran the command yum update. Yum is the package manager on CentOS, and the update command for yum means check for available updates and apply them if they are available. So here's what it's doing. It downloaded and then applied a whole bunch of software upgrades. Actually, now it's applying it. So there's 45 of them. It probably didn't hurt that there's a little bit of lag while we wait this out. But anyway, this is fairly common practice, at least it's the way I often do it. When I'm going to install a new piece of software, I will usually do an update first. Unless I'm aware of some problem with the update. But typically I don't have problems with the updates. I just do the updates and then I install the new piece of software. So we're on the update step right now. Which on the OBS screen is I logged in as root and then I don't need the sudo stuff. So now I'm on the yum update step. And hopefully we'll get past the more time-consuming stuff and it'll just start motoring through the upgrades. It's weird having to be patient like this on Twitch. But anyway, I'm not doing... technically, yeah, Justin. So the question is, could you just use sudo from your regular account? Yes, if sudo is set up, although right now it's not set up yet. So we may make ourselves sudoers. So yeah, usually what you do is just do a sudo with one of your administrator type accounts and run the root level command so you wouldn't have to log in. But on CentOS, it turns out that by default it does not add you to sudoers. So sudo won't work until we go make changes to the sudo system to allow our user to do that. But I might go ahead and add that in today. Okay, so I'm complete. You can, by the way, if you run another yum update, it should just come back and tell you that you're all up to date. Okay, so I just want to show you one other thing. So we're going to install VI improved, VIM. So the old school VI and VI improved, VIM or Vim as most people call it, they have all of the same commands. They have all of the same core functionality. VI improved, not surprisingly, just adds some things that a lot of us consider to be improvements. For example, it has a plugins system, so you can add extra functionality to Vim, VI improved, through a plugin system that's not available in old VI. And a lot of us use those plugins for things like Git and other tools like that. So anyway, we're gonna install Vim, but I just want to show you that you can actually search through the software library, the Yum software library, by saying Yum search and what you're searching for, and then it will tell you all of the software packages that have that string of text attached to it. So there's a Vim file system thing, there's a Vim minimal, there's a Vim common, there's a Vim X11, Vim enhanced, usually. So anyway, I just wanted to show you there's a search utility, so you can, if you're curious if a piece of software might be available, you can do a Yum search for it. It should be true. Let's try it. We should just be able to Yum install Vim and it'll know what to do. Yeah, so one thing you'll notice is it actually is grabbing some of those same software packages that it listed when I did a Yum search. So to install Vim, it's actually going to have to, it knows already, Yum does, that it has 4 different pieces of software that it needs to install to make Vim work. Which is a nice thing about package managers, is that they know that kind of stuff. Like, okay, you want Vim, but are there other dependencies for Vim? There are. Okay, those will be installed for you. So 30 megs, this one should go fast as well. Okay, so now Vim is installed, the improved version. One thing that I would typically do before I log out as root is just, I'll see if Vim is in my path, right? So if you do which Vim, it's going to show you the absolute path to Vim if there is a Vim in a known place on your system. So which Vim is kind of just a quick confirmation that, okay, Vim is here. I'm going to exit now so that I'm no longer root, because I don't want to be root for longer than I need to be. And then I'm going to log back in as my regular user account. And I'm also going to do the which Vim here to make sure that Vim is actually accessed on the path of my regular user. So it is, so that's good. Let me see if I have a folder for this week. I do, week 7, so let me go into the week 7 folder. And I have 1 file in here. But I'm going to make a new file, and let's just try out Vim a little bit. I'll just call it file for now. Okay, so it doesn't look that much different than old VI. And for the most part, you're not going to notice a difference for the basic editing needs that we have. But I know as a programmer, I use Vim because I rely on plugins and other features of the improved version of Vim. So if you're a system administrator, if you have Vim users, they're going to want improved and like as not, and not the older version of just regular VI. So this is VI improved. It probably, by the way, came with Vim Tutor. We'll try it. But it's the same. So I go into insert mode, pardon me. You'll often see people spell it like that, Vim, VI improved. I'm just typing stuff. Hit escape to be in command mode, which is kind of the safe mode, of course. Anyway, the basic editing features are the same. VI improved has better undo and redo capabilities than old VI. So in addition to plugins, it does have a couple of editing features that are nice. But I also wanted you to just have the quick experience of installing a piece of software as root and updating the software on the system. So this is VI improved. We're going to talk about some configuration options. So one configuration option that I always use, I hit colon and I'm going to use set number. Now number is a configuration option, and when I hit enter on this command, you're going to see what happens. I get line numbers. These are not inserted into the file, they're just on the screen, but super helpful to have line numbers. And as I add new lines to the file, you can see that I get more line numbers. So that's set number. I think you can turn it off with set no number. Let's see. Yeah. So set no number would turn it off. Colon set space number turns them on. Now I always have these on when I'm actually working. You've actually seen me on a video a time or two accidentally leave this behind because I wanted to show you how I did it when we got there. So now we're there. So I quite like the numbering feature, especially when I'm doing programmer work or shell scripting, because I want to be able to refer to specific lines. And I'm also just going to add some stuff. So I'm going to add like what do I know? A bunch of. I mean, fruit names are easy. I'll just do fruit names like I always do. That's enough. But I'm doing these for an experiment I'm about to do in a second. I'm going to delete these remaining lines. Now there is a fancier way to do this, but because most of us are new to VI, to delete the line under the cursor, which right now is blinking on line 11 here, DD. You can kind of see if I stop on the first D at the bottom. So I'm going to delete the line under the cursor again. When I type the first D, down at the bottom of my screen there's a D showing. And if I type it again, it's going to delete that line. So D, 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 and now I've deleted all the blank lines at the bottom. And then I'm going to save this. And I want to show you when I come back. So write and quit. Remember, to do write and quit, you need to be in command mode. So there's file. If I open up file.txt again, the line numbers are gone. I can turn them back on. But this thing where you have these options set and you want them to always be there, that's the next step of this. So that is what we're referring to with the, oh, let's see what show, well, no, let's just do number for now. So this reference to tilde vimrc, the tilde means your home directory in Linux shorthand. So a file called .vimrc in your home directory. That's what we're going to do next. So I wanted to show you that the numbers don't stick. So if I have the numbers, I'm going to quit. And I'm going to reopen the file. The numbers are gone. So that's a customization that I want to stick. I want it to be there every time I open vim for anything. So the way to do that is to, you don't have to, but let's go to our home directory just to make sure that we get this in the right place. So cd, and make sure I'm in my home directory because this is where I want to put this file. So I'm actually going to use vim to edit its own configuration file. So the vim, like the permanent customizations that you want to be always available, they go in this file, in your home directory in a file called .vimrc. Hopefully a lot of you remember that if you put a dot on the front of the file name, it becomes an invisible file, which we'll look at in a second. But I'm going to use vim to edit vim's own customizations. Right now it's a non-existent file, so I'm creating it from scratch. And what I want is I want those numbers to show up every time I launch vim. So I'm going to add the customization. Now, the thing to take note of here is that when I'm inside of vim itself, when I was setting line numbers, I was putting :set space number when I was doing my settings on the fly. But to make these settings be permanent from within this vimrc file, I don't put the colon anymore. I just put the customization command in. I'm going to save this, just :w. So I want you to see at the bottom there that it's saved. Hopefully you can see all that. You can. That it saved my .vimrc file with the configuration command set number. So in theory now, once I quit out of here, every time I open any file, it's going to have the line numbers configured to show in it. But I want you to note that you don't put the colon inside of the .vimrc file. You just put the command. The colon is for when you are adding a configuration on the fly. Here we are making a configuration setting that we want to be permanent. Okay, so set number. I'm gonna write and quit just to make sure. So one thing I want to show you about vimrc, if I do a listing here, where did vimrc go? Now I think a lot of you know this. The dot files, the ones that have dot on the front, those are hidden, and all that really means is that regular listings don't show them. So I guess I could ask you, but this is probably an easy question for a lot of you. What's the option I would use here to show also the hidden files? Nice, nice, War Dog. -A. So the -a shows the regular files and all the dot files. So you might remember that we had a whole bunch of dot files for bash. And now we've also added a dot file for vimrc. And dot files are really just there because you don't need to look at them very often. So not having them constantly show up for listings is just a convenience. It's easier to work with. So there's our vimrc. Notice, by the way, that there's a bash rc and a vimrc. So some people will just call these things RC files. And I think most of us just think of RC files as being configuration options for different software. So the bash software configuration options, the vim software configuration options. The RC part stands for run commands. I wish it were more like resource configuration or something fancy like that, but I'm pretty sure that historically that RC just meant run commands. So really all this means is when you start up Vim, run these commands, like set the numbers. Okay, anyway, that's what RC files are. So if I go back to week 7 now, and I vim file.txt, the numbers now show by default. And that's because my RC file in my home directory made that happen. So whenever you launch Vim from anywhere on the system, it's going to go to your home directory and it's going to look for a .vim RC file. If there are commands in there, it's going to run them. You can run other commands in there, by the way, but usually the commands we run are specifically Vim setup or configuration commands. But I want these numbers here because I want to show you one of my favorite Vim tricks when it comes to line numbers. Although I'm going to have to come back to it here in a second. How are we doing on time? I think we're doing okay on time. Okay, so that's installing Vim. That's showing you that editing stuff in Vim is the same as in VI, but it's the one that people who actually use VI for their regular work, they all use Vim as far as I know. I use Vim, all my friends who are VI users use Vim, so I think that's, if you know VI commands, you can edit with VI, but you prefer Vim because it has plug-in options and things like that. Okay, so that's the VI stuff. I'm quitting out of here. Okay, so the next one is the grep command. And it's easiest just to get in the habit of thinking of grep as it's a way to search in files for text. So for example, I have these files, so I can grep for apple in the file I just created. And its output is any lines that happen to match. So I can also grep, for example, vim in that file, and it prints the entire line that has the matching text in it, and it highlights the matching text, which is a sweet touch. Not all systems are configured to do that. So that's grep's basic job is, does that file contain the target text? If you grep for something that's not there, like shoelaces, then grep just displays nothing. So grep, I use it a lot because it's not unusual that you think to yourself, well, I made a couple of different files or maybe 10 different files for that project if you're a programmer, and one of them I used the word dictionary inside of, so you use grep to hunt that kind of stuff down. By the way, you can grep in multiple files. So if I use the star here, it greps in all the files in the present directory. So in this case, it's going to tell me, hey, since you had multiple files, I'll list the file name where I found it and the line that it was on, which is pretty sweet. So like grep a lot. Okay, so now let me show you something that I think is fun about grep. Actually, we'll use the man page first. So let's look at grep and just see what its major options are. The ones that I know I use a lot of. Ignore case. So it's case sensitive by default. So if you want to get all the upper and lower case and you don't care about those distinctions, you can use the -I option. The -V option, instead of printing the matching lines, it prints all the lines that didn't match. The -W option looks for whole words, which is which can be useful. So as an example, apple with spaces around it, and apples with an S. Well, apples has apple in it, but not as a whole word by itself. I'll make an example of that. And then the count option is useful. Tells you how many lines matched what you were searching for. And there's one other, or did we already do the dash V? Oh, I already did the dash V. Oh no, I know what it was. Where'd you go? Sorry, I'm scrolling so much. The other option that I'm going to use is the dash N option, which will tell you on what line numbers it's finding things, and that can be super handy for fast editing. Okay, so that's grep. It's a very, very powerful searching tool. Other than the basic utilities like ls and remove and make dir and cd, and a text editor, I think grep is one of the more powerful sort of second level commands. You sort of have the basic utilities, and then you have the next level, which you start to get more power over the work you can do. Grep is one of those important ones. Okay, so I did grep apple in all of the files in this directory. Now my desserts file, that's in the hands-on experiments for this week, so you're going to see the contents of that file. Hopefully you're at least looking at the hands-on experiments. I've given you the contents of that file so you can see what I made. So those two files have it in 3 places. Let's see how many times it appears as a whole word. None. So nowhere in here does apple as just the whole word by itself appear. It's always part of a larger word. Here's the option that I find myself using a lot. So grep-n, and that adds not only the file it came from, but the line number it was found in. And the cool thing about this, so let's say I want to capitalize baked apples in desserts.txt, which that appears on line 16. VI and Vim will let me say, take me right to line 16. So I can actually launch Vim and tell it that I want to go directly to a specific line number in a specific file. And hopefully everyone saw the reason I'm doing that is because my grep told me the thing I want to edit is on line 16 in desserts. So I use Vim to go directly to line 16 in that file, and I'm going to capitalize it. So here I am on line 16 without having to scroll through a file. This becomes more useful as the files get bigger. This is kind of a garbage file because I wanted to have interesting Vim experiments to run. So I'm going to capitalize this. I'm going to show you one other, okay, so let me put that in the Vim tricks. Vim. So we did a DD, and we did Vim plus line number to jump straight to a file. Now I'm going to use the tilde command. It's not the most convenient thing to type, but some people use it. So if you put a cursor like over this B right here, and you type, you're in command mode, escape, you're in command mode and you type a tilde, it toggles the character. That's not super useful, but it's fast if your fingers can reach it. So I'm also going to capitalize the A in Apple, so I'm in command mode, going to hit the tilde, which is shift on that key that has the tilde on it, and it's now capitalized. Okay, and then I'm just going to take a quick look in here. So crisp appears, there's cobbler a couple times, there's peach and peaches and stuff. So let's try out a few grep commands on this desserts file. If you don't have this file, it's in the hands-on experiments like this. The reason why there's crazy spellings and up and down letters is because I wanted to make the grep experiments interesting. So like crisp, that's all capital, is different from crisp that's capitalized is different from crisp that's lowercase. That way we can do some grep experiments. So make sure I'm in command mode and then :WQ to write out my capitalization. Okay, so now I'm going to focus my grepping on the desserts file. So I know I saw the word crisp in there. And it appears somewhere in the desserts file. I didn't use the -n option, so I don't know on what line number, but there's the word crisp. If I go case insensitive, then I'll notice it actually appears 4 different times, just with different uppercasing and lowercasing having been applied to it. So that's mildly interesting. Let's look for peach. I saw peach in there as well. So there's grep peach. Let's see if there's any. If I do a case insensitive search, do I find more than that? In fact, I do, because it's in there a whole bunch of times. I noticed that the peaches is in there, so I'm going to do that same case insensitive search. But I'm going to do whole words only, just to see if the results are different. So notice peaches is dropped from the whole word search because it's not peach as a whole word by itself, it's part of a larger word, peaches. So you can combine the options as well. So let's try also, like, what if we use the count option? So if you use the count option, you'll notice you get a different output here. So I did a case insensitive, whole words only, count only. So this 4 means I found 4 instances that match what you were searching for. We can also do line numbers. So there's the lines on which those appear. So there's a whole bunch of grep going on there. We can also, by the way, we can do a case insensitive search for peach. What the little V option does, -V, is it, instead of printing out all the matching lines, it actually prints out all the lines that don't contain a match. So those are all the lines that don't have peach in any case insensitive way. Yeah, the -N. Right, -C only gives you the count of the number of matches that grep found. -N for line numbers. I don't know what happens if you combine those things. Let's find out. So anyway, -V is an inversion. What that means basically is it gives me the opposite. So instead of looking for peach, case insensitive, show me everything that wasn't. Possibly. But let's see what happens if we use, let's see if we add the count, what happens. Yeah, so the count appears to just cancel out everybody. I'll show you what I would do. There may be a grep option, but let me show you. So the question is, can I have it give me a count and also display the lines? Here's how I would do it. Yeah. So the way I would do that is I would, and this is going to look a little awkward, but I would probably end up doing something like this. Let's say, so all the lines that have peach on them in desserts, and so I'm actually just going to bundle up 2 commands in a row. In this case, you could also use a semicolon and you're going to get the same result. So it's a little awkward, but you could do it. The double and is good. Experiment with it, but it's good for non-matching circumstances. So that's a little awkward. But when we get to writing shell functions, we can actually bundle this behavior up into a function and get it to do both those behaviors kind of automatically for us. So yeah, pretty sweet. That's the only way that I can think of off the top of my head to get the count and the actual display going. So grep is awesome. If you work in Linux any amount, you're going to end up using it. It's just so powerful to be able to search inside of files for target text. If you're an administrator, there's a good chance you'll use grep to look inside of log files, firewall logs, and user logins and things like that for target text. Yeah, it's like a manual control F. Okay, so that's an introduction to grep. Hopefully the lab and the sort of options for the different answers will give you an excuse to try out a few different things. But if you do the hands-on experiments, the desserts file, I believe, is in there. I'll go look. But the desserts file should be there so that you have that same text that I made for myself to do those experiments on. There we go. Actually, I should show you this whole thing so you can see where I'm getting this from. So let me alter my view real quick. So I'm referring in the lab instructions to this hands-on experiments link. So it also has the whole routine for installing the software and doing the updates and stuff. Some options that I played around with. So here's the desserts file, just so you know that same file I was just playing around with it. That's the contents that I made. So that at least you don't have to sort of think about what am I going to put in here. I actually had to go online and look up dessert names to come up with these silly ideas. But I wanted to be able to do some grep experiments with it. So the hands-on experiment has that stuff. Okay, last few minutes. Grep is fun. It's just neat. And the way CentOS colors up the output, I just think just looks so neat that it's really, really fun to play with. Just to see what you can get. For those of you who have worked a little bit ahead, then you'll recognize that what this is really is regular expressions, simplified regular expressions. Okay, last couple are the date command and the cal command. So these are simple commands. Date, it actually gives you more than the date. It's a timestamp for the exact present moment. Cal, by default, shows you the current month's calendar and it highlights the current day. That's their basic functionality, but they do have options. So I'll just show you some of the options that I think are kind of nifty. So with date, it's actually got a pretty powerful engine. So you can say like, what is 10 days from today? It will be Friday, October 16th. Oh, are you not seeing that? Oh, no, you're not. Sorry. Thank you, chat. There we go. I'll go back and I'll repeat all that. All right, so date. So date by default is a date and timestamp. And so this time and the region, those are in your computer's own configuration, right? So when you install the system, you tell it what time zone you're in. That's where that information comes from. And then cal shows a calendar. It's the current month, and it highlights the current date. So date is way more useful. I almost never use cal except when I'm teaching, except for the rare circumstance where I want to be able to copy and paste a little text calendar into a document or something. Okay, but let me just show you some of the things that I think are cool about date. So there's a -D option, and it has a little engine in it that lets you say things like, what's the date 30 days from now? That'll be a Thursday. It'll be November 5th, which is pretty neat. I think that's really, really cool. It's also picking up, by the way, on the time change, daylight savings. Turns into PSD after November 1st, which is pretty cool, because I think if I go just 25 days hence, yeah, it hadn't ticked over, right? And then on 26 days hence, it's ticked over to daylight savings. So that dash D, I'll go to the man page for it, is a very powerful engine. It doesn't really tell you much in the man pages how to use it, so it can be helpful to Google what kinds of strings you can put in there, but try it out and see what happens. Like, I wonder if I can say, like, 1 year from now. I can say 1 year from now. So that kind of stuff is pretty neat. The other thing that you can do with date, I'll show you what it looks like in the man page. It looks just awful. So again, this is another thing, but if you get down here to all these formatting options, I'll show you a couple of examples. But it turns out that you have control in the date command over what information you see and how it's formatted. So, for example, the -F option down here, the full date, and it tells you it's the same as using the option big Y, little m, little d. So %F, the way you type that, I'm looking at the wrong thing now. The way you type that, you do date, and then you say plus, and then the plus, and the formatting specifier. So in this case, it's F, and then you get year, month, date, which they tell you is the same as doing year, month, date. So there's some really cool ones of these. I think %T does a thing. That's just the time. I want to say %D, big D does something. So a little calendar date. There's a whole bunch of those formatting specifiers. The trick is to know that you got to put a plus in the front of them to get them to show. So that's the date command. Super, super useful in making scripts that have timestamps and date stamps and stuff in them. So when we get to scripting, we'll try to make excuses to use date in its variants. Oh, can you do date? Can you say, like, this would be crazy? If that works, no way. I didn't know you could do that, Crotan. That's totally awesome. That's crazy, man. Can I go 50 years ago? Holy moly! Yeah, that's crazy cool. That's super, super neat that you can do that. So anyway, I love tools that let you sort of use regular language, like 1 year ago, to talk to them. All right, so that's date. Try out all the stuff, all the sort of wrong answers. Most of them have legitimate options you can try out. The other thing is, yeah, what cal page do you want? Calendar. So this one's kind of boring, but there's options for displaying more calendar. You can say how many months you want. You can say a span of days. You can make Sunday the first day of the week or Monday the first day of the week. It'll do Julian calendar. So you can do like cal-3, which will wrap the current month in the 3 months around it. I assume that you can do 4. Nope, it won't do 4. Cal-1 is the default. You can also specify calendars for specific months in the past if you want to see what those would look like. Oh, odd numbers only. Okay. Oh, that makes sense, right? Because, oh, bummer. I guess literally. Oh, dash in. Dash in. Okay, so you can count dash in for it. So -3 gives you the 3 months around and including. If you use the -n option, then you start it this month and you get that many months hence. Like, what if you do something insane? Yep, it does it. I don't know how useful that is, but it will totally do it. Yeah, cal-4 doesn't work for me. -4. Oh, bummer. It has to be positive. Yeah. So dash N4 works. Yeah, it'd have been fun. Anyway, Cal, I don't use it a whole lot, but occasionally I think to myself, um, I want this somewhere in a file that I'm creating for some reason, or I want to use it for some programming purpose or for some scripting purpose. I'll use Cal. So anyway, Cal has a few options. We're in Sunday first mode, so we could do Monday first mode. Monday's the first day of the week as opposed to Sunday. It's a simple command, so try out a bunch of the options there. Yeah, no, I'm totally with you, Crotan. If I think it might work, I try it, and the worst thing that happens is it doesn't work. So it's a way to discover, oh, that works. How amazing. It's a great way to discover that because no harm's done. It either works or it doesn't. Okay. That's it for me. We're at 12:01. Hopefully, I've given you everything that you can need to get through the week's work. I'll remind you that, I'll change my view. I will remind you that the text, the notepad screen on the right-hand side shows you everything without the options, but all the big stuff that we talked about. And then if you go to the hands-on experiments, so if you go to the assignment page, there's a link to hands-on experiments in the instructions. If you open that page, there are screen captures that walk you through all the major stuff that we did. And at the end, it has the file that you can use to help you do grep experiments with. So that's the whole show. Yeah, it would be good for agendas, that's true. Okay, that's the whole show for this week. Next week is normal week, so I'll be here again on Tuesday. The week after that is the midterm week, so please start making plans to have room for that in your schedule. Otherwise, I hope that the rest of this week goes great for everybody. Drop questions in Piazza if you have them. Drop me a Canvas inbox message if you need to communicate with me directly. And take care. I'll see you next Tuesday.